Senator Sanders wants to dismantle Obamacare, dismantle the CHIP program, dismantle Medicare, dismantle private insurance. Senator Sanders wants to devolve the authority to set up state health insurance programs to individual state governors.
That was Chelsea Clinton giving her first stump speech for her mother, presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. You hear her accuse Bernie Sanders of trying to scrap Obamacare. Needless to say, it's generated some chatter among Republicans and Democrats. And with that in mind, we want to welcome in today's roundtable.
Joining us today, Chelsi Henry, who is also on our top 30, under 30 on Newsmax.com. Chelsea, congratulations. And Kevin Broderick, who, like me, is just a little bit too old to qualify for that list. But we love you, Kevin. Anyway, Newsmax contributor Kevin Broderick is with us. All right, guys. Former Obama advisor, senior Obama advisor, David Axelrod, had this to say in reaction to Chelsea Clinton's attack against Sanders. Let's take a listen.
I really regret that the Clinton campaign sent Chelsea out to make the attack that she made today. I don't think it was the right attack. Bernie Sanders is proposing single-payer universal health care. You can hardly say he's trying to take health care away from anyone or retreat from Obamacare. He's trying to exceed it.
All right, so a little uncomfortable watching that clip of Chelsea. It seems like she didn't want to be out there. It seemed very rehearsed, very staged. But Kevin, let me start with you. Hillary Clinton is attacking Bernie Sanders on health care, which David Axelrod dismissed there, also on gun control. Is this a sign when you see Chelsea Clinton out there on the campaign stump speech stage? Is it a sign of desperation, or do you think it's a savvy political move?
I think it's a sign of desperation because, first of all, Chelsea Clinton is not a natural politician, and she didn't look that great there. Like you said, it looked like she didn't want to be there. The reality is the Clinton campaign's fighting a war on three fronts. They've got Bernie Sanders in front of them, who has surged. So the last month, 30 days ago, Hillary was at 52% nationally against Bernie's 32%. Right now, it's 48 to 41. So Bernie Sanders has closed a 20-point gap to 7 points in just 1 month. A lot of establishment Democrats that looked at Bernie Sanders as unelectable are now seeing him as electable, and that's a big problem for Hillary Clinton. And now she's got to her right, she's got Donald Trump, who is willing to let it rip and attack her and her husband, which she has clearly backed down from. She doesn't want to get into a tussle with him because he just doesn't seem to lose. And then from her behind, she's got to worry about the FBI. And that's a three-pronged approach, three-front fight that she doesn't want to have. And it's really hurting her campaign right now.
All right, let me stop you there and bring in Chelsea. Chelsea, when you see Chelsea Clinton out there on the stump like that, does it make you say, what's going on? Can you imagine what was going on behind closed doors, trying to bring this up with some strategists?
I can only imagine, and I agree with Kevin that this was a sign of desperation. She looked very uncomfortable, and just in the fact of her delivery, the verbiage that she used, again, very rehearsed. And so the Clinton campaign, they're desperate. You know, they put Bill Clinton out there, and his past is coming to haunt him. And now they're putting Chelsea Clinton out there, and her present and her delivery seems like it's going to haunt them. So I hope that they would consider and reconsider their strategy in terms of going back to the issues, going back to the policy, because just as we just heard, Bernie is surging. And not only is he surging, let's also remember the fact that the Iowa caucuses are a few weeks away. And so what is that going to be? Is he going to bypass her? And I can see that happening.
Well, she doesn't really pay attention to the poll numbers. We brought that up. She didn't really pay attention.
No politicians do.
But she did go on ABC News and defend her daughter's attack. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
You know, I adore my daughter, and I know what she was saying, because if you look at Senator Sanders' proposals going back 9 times in the Congress, that's exactly what he's proposed.
So, Kevin, what do you think? Does it look like she's trying to clean up her daughter's mistake?
No. I mean, it looks like she's kind of doubling down. The reality is Bernie Sanders has been for single payer the entire time. And if you're a left-leaning person, Bernie Sanders is your authentic candidate. And Hillary Clinton is someone you look at as, yeah, you know, we used to like her, but can we really trust her? And her honest and trustworthy numbers, even amongst Democrats, it's 66%. Bernie Sanders is at about 93%.
Well, let me stop you there and get to Chelsea real quick, Kevin, because Bill Clinton was actually out in the stump today in New Hampshire as well. And I would think that if they thought that it was a good move to have Chelsea out there, if she was successful yesterday, they wouldn't have put Bill out there and they would have had her out there again today, or maybe both. Chelsea, what do you think?
You're right. If she would have been successful, they would have increased her on the campaign trail. Bill still has a place in the hearts of many Americans, and so it makes sense that he's still out there. But I think what's also important is when you look at all these numbers that are across the board is that people, well, let me just bring this up. MoveOn.org yesterday decided that they were going to we're going to support Bernie. So just the momentum behind Bernie. And again, he's authentic. He stayed the same. And at least with his plan, though I don't agree with it, at least with his plan, he said, this is how much we're going to save families per year, 5,000.
Yeah. Right. Well, Chelsea, we talked about that enthusiasm gap yesterday as well, and we discussed this. This has been a theme on the show, and it's panic time for the Clinton campaign. And we're not going to panic because we got more of Kevin and Chelsea coming up right after this. Part 2 of our roundtable's coming up. We're going to take a look at Ted Cruz and his evil genius plan. Is it all finally coming together now? Again, as we approach just 3 weeks until the Iowa caucuses, we'll talk about that and the key endorsement he got today. And David Drucker also will talk about Nikki Haley's response to the State of the Union.
I've looked at the candidates. Ted Cruz is my man. He fits the bill. He's godly. He loves us. He's the man for the job, and he will go duck hunting because today we're going. Ted Cruz is my man. I'm voting for him.
Boom! It's the endorsement anyone on the GOP side would want. Ted Cruz picking up the backing of Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson, and he is on a roll.
And this is not SNL skit.
No, that was a real commercial.
We promise.
Yeah.
While Trump leads national polls, a new Iowa poll shows Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz now with a 3-point lead over Trump, 25 to 22%. Rubio only gets about half of that support. He now has 12%, and Carson stands at 11%. Back with our roundtable once again, chair of the Republican Diversity Coalition, Chelsi Henry, and Newsmax contributor Kevin Broderick. Thanks for sticking around, guys.
Great to be here.
All right, guys, Politico had a great article about Ted Cruz today, and it says he has a big surprise coming for New Hampshire. Senator Bob Smith, the co-chair of Cruz's efforts in New Hampshire, told Politico, quote, Cruz is clearly the conservative favorite at this point. If Cruz does well in Iowa, which looks really good right now, and he can come here, and we think he can unify a lot of conservatives who might be with the other candidates and be right in the thick of things. Of course, this plan depends on Trump's actions in the next few weeks. But, Kevin, I want to ask you this because forgive me for being a little judgmental here. I don't think you'd normally back a guy like Cruz or Trump for that matter. But if it was a choice, and I think this is a case for a lot of Republicans right now, if it comes down to the two, I think Cruz is a lot more likely to get the backing of the so-called establishment wing as opposed to Trump. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right, John. I think this is a very deft move by Cruz because the reality is, as long as he can prevent a lot of oxygen going from one of those establishment candidates, a la Kasich, Christie, Rubio, or even Jeb Bush, keeping that field splintered so that they can all drag along and eventually just knock each other off is a great move. So if you can keep them splintered and coalesce some of those votes by having a strong showing in New Hampshire, then he's going to be in a great position.
Chelsea, do you agree with that?
Yes, and I think something, an advantage for Ted Cruz is that as he's been going off after the social conservatives and the Tea Partiers, the libertarians, I think he also has an opportunity to tap into the Republican evangelicals, you know, in terms of how they come out and vote. As an evangelical, I'm one who will hope that more conservative evangelicals come out, but he has that message. He has that story. He is always talking about his faith, God, him and his wife, Heidi. You know, they do not keep that a secret. And so if he continues to bring those groups together and he's able to tap into some of those evangelicals that have stayed home some of the past elections, I think Senator Cruz has a great chance of getting the nomination.
Yeah, and he's going to bring together all the duck hunters, apparently, too.
Yeah.
So,
This would be some sweet, sweet justice, too, for the conservative wing of the Republican Party who have had to, in effect, hold their nose and vote for a guy like Mitt Romney, perhaps. This would be completely the opposite. You could see the establishment type, especially the folks like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, who clearly do not like Ted Cruz based on some of the interaction they've had in the U.S. Senate, have to get behind this guy. You can almost see it happening. But again, I think if it's a choice, if you ask John McCain, who are you going to pick, Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, I think he would still go with Ted Cruz.
It's someone he can trust. It's somebody, you know, even though the dealings have not always been favorable between the two, it's still someone that at least he knows where that person stands. At the end of the day, is Donald Trump really even a Republican? That's the question that I continue to get asked, because people think that he's in the race just to be there for Hillary Clinton. And so Senator Ted Cruz is someone who, despite if you support what he believes in, he stood by his beliefs. And that's something that you can admire and something that I think Americans at the end of the day would vote for, because he's being authentic. And that's what matters in this day and time.
Something else that's interesting, as this birther discussion has continued, Ted Cruz has kind of thrown that back in Trump's face and brought up the whole fact that Trump is from New York City. And, Trump does have a lot of support in the Southland, but if you just think about that Pace Picante salsa commercial, remember? New York City. Get a rope. I mean, that might still play, and Ted Cruz, again, may have a little advantage on this, Kevin.
Well, yeah,
bringing up New York City in the Southland might still work.
It might be a pretty good idea for him to try and paint Trump as this elitist Manhattan rich person that doesn't understand the struggles in the heartland. I think Ted Cruz is doing a very good job playing a little rope-a-dope right now. It looks like him and Trump are going to have to take the gloves off and start fighting a little bit more. But it's pretty amazing that the establishment might even hold their nose and go with Trump, because Cruz is sort of poisoned the well so much in Washington, D.C. They couldn't imagine him getting the nomination, and they'll say, at least we'll go with a brick thrower like Trump, who's going to actually broaden the base. You look at a Trump rally, that's not a typical Republican audience. There's a lot of people there that don't vote normally or aren't Republicans.
True. Yeah, and I think some of those, if Trump doesn't pan out, I think some of those folks would actually say, we sampled the Trump, maybe we'll like some Cruz too. And also, real quickly, it will be very interesting tomorrow night in Charleston, South Carolina at the debate. The two have been feeling each other out a little bit the last time around. I think the gloves are going to come off, and we're looking forward to having Chelsi live in Charleston for us tomorrow. That's the plan anyway, and we'll look forward to seeing you then, getting some on-the-ground perspective from Charleston from Chelsi Henry. Kevin Broderick, Chelsi Henry, thanks so much for being with us.
Have a great night.
See you tomorrow.
All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to congressional correspondent from the Washington Examiner, David Drucker. He's going to be talking about South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Is she the future of the GOP or breaking it apart?